This series of videos, I want to basically give people my point of view on how to break the box per se. So, allow me, a regular guy, let me drop my theory on what I think quote-unquote free will is and has always been. This is what free will is not. The simple act of being free to do as you please. That's a lie. You're not designed to do that. Children as young as 19 months can display acts of fairness or kindness. Human beings have genetic lessons that are passed down. We have 3 basic instincts as human beings: self-preservation, reproduction, and social instinct, meaning that we like company. I want you to look at all those 3 and tell me if human beings are designed to simply do whatever they want to do. I'll wait. In the meantime, you can check out that picture. God, I love art. So let's continue. Self-preservation, reproduction, and social instinct. As a matter of fact, you're a slave to any and all of these instincts at one point or another throughout your life. Let me tell you what free will actually is. It is the ability to manifest whatever you envision. All you have to do is apply sufficient will behind the vision. Willpower. Willpower is the motivation to exercise will, the motivation to do what you want to do. A strong will is something that's developed. It's earned. But once it's earned, you have a very confident person, someone who can get things done because they have sufficient willpower to do what they need to do. Now keep in mind that you can want something all you want, but you still have to take an actual step forward, an action. But we'll get to that in a second. But let's go back and think how many times you used willpower for basic shit, like doing things you knew you wasn't supposed to do as a kid. Anything you just had to have and you worked for it was a time you displayed your will. And 9 times out of 10, as long as no one stood in your way, you most likely achieved it. You envisioned what you wanted to do, and with enough will, you manifested it. It became reality, and it added to a moment in time. There is, however, 2 things that you need to know about my definition of free will. 1, it depends on time. How much time spent willing the vision, or alternately, how much time you actually have. You can't create a parachute out of thin air. You don't have enough time. However, with enough time, you could make a makeshift raft to get you off of an island. So time is very important to free will and bringing your vision forward. The second thing you need to know about my theory of free will is that if you have free will, then so does everyone else. Someone else's will may go against your own, and they could possibly cancel out what you're trying to do by putting will or effort into stopping you. Sports are a good example of this. The guys on the team, they think they're gonna win. They are willing themselves to win. They believe it. The opposing team is saying the exact same thing. They believe that they're gonna win. And then it becomes a clash of wills to see who has the greater willpower. Our parents, when we were kids, are another example, showing you that you just can't do what you want to do. That's the old free will bullshit. But if you put in sufficient will, then you can come up with a plan to get around your parents in order to do that shit you wasn't supposed to do. You envisioned it, you willed it into existence, and you made it happen. All that's left is for you to enjoy that ass whipping that's coming later on. The bottom line is, anything you put enough will into, and as long as you have the proper time, eventually will be made manifest. This is one of the conscious human being's greatest abilities. You gotta understand, the chair you sit in, the plane that you flew from point A to point B, the knives, the tables, the buildings, the cars, the TV, the houses, these things were all created with the power of will. The hydrogen bomb, the particle accelerator. With the power of will, we created things that harness the power of the atomic particles, and even built machines designed to accelerate particles and smash them if we want to. A will makes a way to do what needs to be done. Imagine that. Humans fucking with atomic particles, some of the building blocks of the material world, because they thought about what it would be like to do it. Some very intelligent people with similar visions and wills got together and did that shit. Think of anything you want to in your head. Without the power of will, the willpower to make it a reality, then it's just an idea. It's some imaginary shit that no one sees except you. But let's take it to the extreme. What about if you're in jail? There isn't a prison you can't escape if you have sufficient willpower to do so, and time. What makes it difficult is my second reason that I told you about earlier. Other people have willpower too. The guards are there to exert their will over your own, so it becomes a test of wills. Pure and simple. It hasn't stopped famous escapees though. You know, once you escape a prison, it just shows that nothing is stronger than the human will with sufficient time. Where there is a will, there is a way. It gets no simpler than that. I use jail because it's usually associated with being trapped, being caged, no longer free, no longer free will, the old school thinking of it. But that's not true in my opinion, and with my understanding of what free will actually is. Plenty of mobsters and drug lords are able to exert their will in prison and outside of prison as well. People still get killed off of their orders, or they can even escape with outside help. They have enough will to get the job done. And others who do their bidding also feel the influence of the boss's will. Yes, willpower can influence others. People can watch how dedicated you are and wish to join you, which allows you to manifest things on a larger scale. Look no further than Martin Luther King Jr. Everybody looked at how tireless he was. They saw him getting those ass whippings, saw that he was willing to go to jail, and that kind of iron willpower inspired people to follow him and believe in his vision of equality. What do you envision? Is it what you want? And how much willpower do you have to see it manifest? On a deeper level, it's the power to create. I'm not a religious man, but in my earlier vids, I made it clear I believe in a higher power. I believe in God. But let's take it biblical. If God is the creator and we are created from a being who can create an entire universe, then we too should be able to have the power to create at a smaller scale. The very reason the Bible calls the universe creation is because God created it. He supposedly willed it into existence, and so it was. So it stands to reason creation is also our most godly ability. After all, if a God is all powerful, anything that God creates will have a powerful essence, yes? So why is it so hard to believe that you can create anything if you put sufficient will into it? How many times has your favorite entertainer talked about hard work and dedication? Both of those things are functions of will. Will powers dedication, and hard work, with time, you achieve. The only things that are against you are time and the wills of those against you. Which brings us back to the system that I talked about in our earlier videos. You know, the governing system. Doesn't matter if it's a system of capitalism, racism, communism, classism. The more oppressive a government is, there are more desperate people with strong wills who seek to topple it. This is historically true. The less you give to people, the more improvisation is required. Many people talk about the intellect required to make something out of nothing, but it stems from a strength of will. If you need something, you put will behind that and get it done. Consider the people who were part of the Underground Railroad during American slavery. These people were all strong-willed. They had a vision of freedom and they put their lives on the line to make it happen. Slowly, but with enough time and collective will, slavery was abolished. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is moving despite fear. That movement is the power of will. It is in you and it is free. This system itself is a function of other people's wills. It can be broken, it can be beaten, it can be redone. I want you to think about the hood, to be able to grind, to hustle. All of that is willpower. You envision a better life for yourself and you put the will behind that vision. To do whatever it takes the strongest of wills, bottom line. Yes, a governmental system can oppress, but even the most oppressive regimes could not stop the power to create. To create takes will. Whatever you envision, put your will into it. Put your body into it, your mind, everything you've got. And if no other person is directly trying to counter you and you have enough time, you'll manifest it. If you're worried about that other person, the competition, then get more people behind you. There is strength in numbers. If they share your vision, then they share your passion. They will be an extension of your will. Armies are based off of that premise. The army fights for the will of the king. Today's armies fight for the United States government. However, the will of the president is what they truly follow. If he says, let's fight for America, then they do that shit. Alternately, if everyone wanted peace and equality, then there is nothing that the minority could do to stop it. If there is enough collective will, then it makes the way. Simple as that. You know, the reason that most people don't achieve is that most don't put in sufficient will. They start off strong, but fall off, or they lose their patience with time. This is why you still have so many problems that we have today in society. The collective will of the people is either scattered or weakened. In America, people are scared their children will die in a school shooting, but they lack the necessary will to collectively surround the White House and demand changes in gun laws. I said it earlier, courage requires will to overcome fear. And Americans, by and large, are anxious and fearful. It's right there in the newspapers. They're always talking about how Americans feel so anxious and they're scared. Americans are also fearful of demanding better of the few thousand elected officials that make up the government, even though there's over 300 million Americans. Yes, collectively, willpower is sorely lacking. But that doesn't stop the individual. It doesn't stop you and I and anybody else with the proper courage to inspire people to do better. So that's my theory of free will. What do you think? Leave a comment below. Fuck that. Y'all know I don't allow comments. This is all opinion. You take it or leave it, but you never know. Remember what we know about reality, the science. It ain't etched in stone. The playing field is wide open. We are still learning with so much more to possibly learn. That is the truth. And just in case I haven't changed your perspective, remember when the color TV was the new thing and you thought to yourself, damn, look at technology. This is amazing. And here we are with flat screen TVs all over the walls, all over the place, and they're cheap. There is your perspective. I told you, science is not the end-all be-all. Scientific fact is only momentary. It changes. What you thought was the shit years ago becomes the old shit in the future. What you think that you don't know enough of it. You're an infant, just like I am. And no matter how far we go as human beings, we will always be able to do better than our current situation, than our current technology, than our current thought. We are designed that way. God designed us genetically to always ask why. And to answer that question makes us better each and every time. We want to know. We have to know. And that inquisitive nature of ours is something that we cannot turn off. It is our core. It is our soul. It will one day lead us into the very stars and planets that we keep looking at. It'll lead us into the light years. It'll lead us to other places. It'll lead us to understand creation and the infinite. And at one point, eventually, it will lead us to God. I will leave you with this. The great Maya Angelou. Courage is the greatest of all the virtues of mankind. She was 100% correct. Without courage, you cannot take the first step of any task. It takes courage to admit that you're wrong. Courage to admit that you're scared. Courage to move in spite of fear. Courage to love. The list goes on and on, but it starts with the free will to make it happen. You already have it. You were born with it, and it comes from on high.